Hello and welcome. I'm Ozarks First Meteorologist Tom Schmidt, and a lot of headlines after the weekend has really come around. We've seen a lot of flooding in the headlines, including here in Springfield, but also, of course, down in Texas. And what I want to do today is kind of give a general walkthrough of how to forecast for flooding, what factors we look at, and how we can decide, okay, this might be a time for flooding. The flood risk might be high for today or tomorrow or whenever, okay? So flooding has been in the headlines. We had the activity, of course, in Texas. There's also been some flooding in North Carolina as leftovers from Storm Chantel make the way into Appalachia. A lot of rain in parts of North Carolina from the weekend, and that continues for this morning as well. Let's go ahead and dive in. We're going to start off first taking a look at the rainfall from July 4th through the weekend down in Texas. Big rain. You can see the bullseye right in the middle part of the state. Seen quite a bit of rain down there. Some radar estimates put it over a foot of rain. Looking at Kerrville, and then also just to the west of Georgetown, Marble Falls, picking up by radar estimates about 2 feet of rain. Pretty crazy. Mason, also seeing a lot of rain there. Again, several spots recording over a foot of rain in a day. All right, which is extreme. It's an extreme amount of moisture. The officials are calling it a 500 to 1,000 year rainfall event. Now, that doesn't mean it only happens once every 1,000 years. What that means is basically there's a 0.0001% chance of happening. So pretty extreme on the way, or sorry, 0.1 chance of happening. So pretty extreme rainfall amounts down across central Texas. All right. And what happened was, obviously, it led to a lot of tragic events. There's been a lot of fatalities associated with the heavy rain. A lot of folks like to try to figure out, well, who's responsible for this? Well, the fact is it's the weather. It's Mother Nature. And it's pretty hard to point the finger at somebody to try to figure out, well, how did it get like this? It can be hard sometimes when dealing with these extreme weather events to wrangle and to manage and to respond to the disasters that are formed when you have a foot of rain fall over an area that typically doesn't see that much ever in a single rainfall event, for sure. So looking at the radar time loop over central Texas, what happened was this is the remnants. Notice that little swirl on there? That was the remnants of a tropical storm, Barry, that made a landfall as a tropical storm across parts of Mexico. And the remnants just kept lifting northward. It wasn't tropical by the time it made its way into central Texas, but that spin, that low-level energy was still present, enough to really pull in a lot of moisture, lower the pressure just enough to get ongoing convection, and, of course, dew points were crazy high off the charts. And so you get a lot of moisture in the air, and you get that little convection field to move in with this leftover system, and you just crank out a lot of rain. And there's no real jet stream energy with this. And so rain formed, and it didn't really move. Nothing came through to help move it along. A lot of the rain just parked itself right over central Texas. And North Carolina is dealing with a similar thing with leftovers from Tropical Storm Chantel that's made its way into the North Carolina Appalachia. And so just areas to the northwest of Raleigh are starting to see a lot of heavy rain in that part of the country as well this morning. Here locally, that's nationally. Looking back here at the Ozarks, we had quite a bit of rain in some areas come through yesterday. Sunday rainfall totals were only about 0.37 inches of rain in Springfield. But if you travel on the east side of Springfield, looking at Turner's, looking at Highway 65, okay, down to Galloway, maybe up towards Stratford, really to where the Buc-ee's is located, I-44, about a mile or two outside of Springfield, and southward, kind of that corridor. Guess what? They saw 3, 4, to some cases, 5 inches of rain right there, just on the east side of Springfield. We had some pretty intense flooding, too, as that storm, like we talked about, dumped a lot of rain. The jet stream energy is pretty weak, so just kind of sat around. It was a slow-moving system. It didn't have anything to kind of keep it moving along. The wind energy was light. And so we just got a whole lot of rain to dump itself right there in buckets on the east side of Springfield. That was yesterday. Now today, what we're looking at is we got some rain moving across the southern part of the state, near the state line, our southern counties in southern Missouri and our northern counties in northern Arkansas. Seeing a little bit of rain already this morning. Take a closer look at that. It's starting to weaken some, starting to fade away. We did see some heavy rain, though, earlier on near Branson. That's since moved on. And Gainesville, West Plains, getting into Alton and Oregon County, starting to see some of that rain make its way there. Nothing severe this morning, and there's additional chances for rain and storms later today, and we'll see a scattered chance for this afternoon. Severe weather today is looking most likely across the northern and central plains of Nebraska up to South Dakota and parts of western Kansas and eastern Colorado. We'll see a light risk, a very low risk of seeing maybe a stronger storm with some wind, maybe 50 to 60 miles per hour. With any one storm that randomly develops this afternoon in the Ozarks. I'm thinking mostly near and south of I-44. Southern Missouri, maybe even into northern Arkansas, will have a better chance of seeing rain today. So that's what we're looking at this afternoon. All right. Coming up next is some pictures. All right, we're going to take a look at the forecast and specifically the rainfall forecast and the flooding risk. Okay, we're going to talk more about now what the forecast is, and then we'll talk about how do we get a forecast for rainfall. Well, what are we looking at to determine, hey, your flood risk is pretty high? Let's take a look at it, okay? So this map here is the excessive rainfall outlook from I believe, the Weather Prediction Center. And it's pretty interesting. It gives a good idea of where flooding chances are presenting themselves, where they may formulate a little bit. And in this case, this is for today, valid this afternoon, all right? For day one, which is Monday afternoon. Got a slight chance, they call it a marginal chance, which means there's at least a 5% chance, a risk, of seeing flooding developing in the Ozarks today. 5% is not all that high. I think the main reason for this is because it's not going to be a widespread rain event, okay? The flood risk, I think, is locally higher than the low-end risk here, but it's just going to be very localized. Not everybody's going to see rain today, but those that do will come with a flooding risk, all right? Moving on to day two, similar setup. I think the coverage is a little better for Tuesday in terms of rain and thunderstorms, some of which will be heavy, especially southern Missouri and northern Arkansas. I think you'll find the heaviest rain there developing for Tuesday afternoon. Jumping into Wednesday, the heavy rain really moves down to the south and to the east. Still some stray showers here or there, but largely rain chances winding down for Wednesday. And then Thursday, Friday looks like we'll be dry and hot, back to about 90 degrees to wrap up the week. All right, this is what they call QPF, Quantitative Precipitation Forecast. This current image here is valid for this afternoon. And so rain amounts is all this is. Then the light shaded green to the dark shaded green could see anywhere from 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch. I would estimate, though, that some areas could see 1 inch or more of fast, heavy rainfall localized in pockets for today. All right. Advancing to the QPF forecast for tomorrow, Tuesday. Similar situation, maybe a few more spots getting into the darker colors, indicating 1 inch of rain possible. I would say Tuesday, there's also going to be a risk of pockets seeing 2 inches or more. Remember, what we had Sunday is similar to the setup we're going to see today. And for Tuesday, East Springfield picked up 4 to 5 inches of rainfall in 1 hour. And I think there'll be pockets, okay, very local amounts, where that's going to be a possibility for today and for tomorrow. Not everywhere, but there'll be those chances for some local heavy rainfall and local flooding with any heavy downpours that will have the chance to develop today and tomorrow. And then that chance fades away on Wednesday. This image here, valid for Wednesday afternoon. Rain chances, and I agree with this one a bit more than I have the others. Rain pretty slim. 1/10 of an inch, maybe 1/4 of an inch, if you see rain on Wednesday. Rain chances Wednesday, overall looking much, much lower. All right, so let's talk a bit more about how do we determine a forecast? What are we looking at to help ourselves kind of put together a a rainfall forecast, rainfall totals. Flooding specifically can be a little tricky at times to determine. A lot of the data, especially this time of year, might underperform on rainfall totals until the last minute. And then you're like, holy smokes, data is saying 6 inches plus. Sometimes that happens day of. So it can be kind of tricky. But there are some signs we can look at to kind of give us a warning in advance of, it's going to rain, yes, but rain may come with some flooding. So let's jump in and take a look at some of the factors we'd like to look at. We'll call these flood forecast factors. And the first one I like to use is called precipitable water. Basically what this measures is if you were to condense all the water in the atmosphere, condense it down in a column. So in this case, like a rain gauge size column, condense it all the way down. That's the amount of rainfall you would produce. Basically, think of the atmosphere like a rag, a wet rag. If you were to take that rag and just squeeze all the water out of it, this is how much water you'd collect, all right? So this is like maximum rainfall potential. Now remember, this is a model, not a forecast guarantee. It's a model. This is not observed. But it's a good guidance for us to use. So this is going to be valid for today. Monday midday through Monday afternoon. We can see some precipitable water values down across southern Missouri and northern Arkansas for today coming in over 2 inches. That's pretty high. You have precipitable water values of 2 inches or more. That's a waterlogged atmosphere. A lot of moisture, a lot of rainfall to come down within that hour. Okay, so it's a lot of moisture there. So I think the heaviest rain potential today and for tomorrow is going to be really south of Highway 60, all right? Southern Missouri, northern Arkansas. But if you look farther northward, even across parts of central Missouri, even here, you can still see PWatt values of 1.5 inches, 1 2/3 inches, which is still pretty heavy. But I think the heaviest rain for today and tomorrow will be found southern Missouri, northern Arkansas. So precipitable water is just one tool we can use in the forecast to determine where the heavy rain is going to be. Jumping ahead to Tuesday, we can see, Tuesday morning might have some heavy rain across west central and central Missouri. Going into Tuesday afternoon, here we go. Valid at 6 p.m. We can see again, like before, the heaviest of the rain indicated to be across southern Missouri and northern Arkansas, where precipitable water values at times in the reds are over 2 inches. And again, 2-inch PWatt values are quite high. That should get your attention. The flood risk is certainly there when you have PWatt values that quick. Now, you can have high PWatt values and not be worried about flooding, okay? So that's just one factor to look at. One of the other factors to look at is the jet stream, right? This is the wind, the driving force behind storms moving, okay? This is kind of the drivetrain, if you will. If you have a strong jet stream, storms are going to be moving quickly. So they're not going to be sitting over the same area or moving slowly, producing 2, 3, 4 inches of rainfall in an hour over the same area. What you'll do is you'll produce those 2 to 3 inch rainfall rates, but the storm will be moving so quickly. So it'll be 5-10 minutes of rainfall, and then it moves on. That's what happens with a strong jet stream. What we're seeing now is a very weak jet stream. So I want to point this out, okay? Here, I'm going to draw it in yellow. Here is the jet stream right there. And we're looking at this other jet stream over Missouri nearby. That one, not too strong, right? They're pretty weak. You're really looking for those brighter colors when you're looking at this specific model, just to give you guys at home just something to reference. We're seeing very dull colors here, okay? Your wind speeds are low. There's not a lot of really motion in the upper air to keep these storms moving. So here's valid for Monday afternoon. This is going to be for this afternoon. You can see the jet stream energy over Missouri when we have our rain chance coming in. It's pretty weak. There's not much motion there. And so we have precipitable water values of 2 inches or more in some cases across southern Missouri and northern Arkansas. And the jet stream energy, that the driving force that keeps storms moving, is just not there. It's very slow motion. So we can expect to see heavy rain today at times. Not everybody's going to see the heavy rain, but those that see rain, it will be heavy and it won't move. It'll park itself. It'll kind of meander around. Very slow storms today. And that's why we're talking about you could see 2 to 3 inches of rainfall over a 1 hour period over the same area. And so that's where your flooding risk comes from. Heavy rain in a storm that just won't budge. That's because the jet stream energy is weak. It's not much to really keep the storm moving. It's going to sit parked in the same spot. And so that's for Monday. If we advance ahead, look at Tuesday afternoon, similar deal, right? Here's your jet stream, at least overhead for us in the Ozarks. And not much, right? The wind energy over Missouri and Arkansas, it's weak. There's not much there. Something else, okay? There's three factors to look at and to consider when looking at rainfalls. We talked about the precipitable water values, talked about the jet stream energy, and the third one is to look for any boundaries, right? It could be a boundary of any kind, an instability axis, a boundary there, a wind shift boundary. Maybe there's maybe at the surface things are calm, but way up high there's a boundary in the upper levels. Maybe there's a dew point boundary, a moisture boundary between wet and dry, called the dry line. So any kind of boundary that forms will be a focus point for rain and storms to begin. And there will be a weak boundary. There's a stalled boundary, very weak, draped across near I-44, okay, in the Ozarks. And that's going to be a focus point for rain to begin and develop. And because there's no real wind motion or wind energy in the atmosphere now because of the weak jet stream ahead, the weak upper-level wind energy, rain and storms that develop near this boundary, scattered in nature, they'll just keep developing. And that boundary, again, will be kind of the focus point for those rain and storms to keep on moving, slow as they might be. But that's when you'll find training. Okay, that's the best case scenario for get these training storm events where you have storms following the same path over and over and over. One rain shower, a heavy rain shower after the other. All right, and so we have one of those. We have a boundary draped across near I-44 for this morning. And then that'll be the case as well for tomorrow as some weak energy comes out of Kansas and Nebraska. We'll see that boundary across the Ozarks again for tomorrow. So we'll have those three elements in play. Those three factors are there. And so we're looking at PWatt values of 1.5 to 2 inches. We're looking at weak winds aloft. The energy up in the upper levels is fairly weak, meaning slow-moving storm systems. And we have a boundary that'll be in place for both today and for tomorrow, meaning there'll be ongoing convection over the same areas with rain and thunderstorms today and tomorrow. So the flood risk here locally, it's small in terms of who's going to see flooding. Not everybody's going to see flooding, but those that do see rain and do see storms will have to be watchful for a flood risk. So there you go. I hope this little explainer was helpful to you if you're wondering, well, how do we put together a forecast? How do we know? What do we look at for flooding specifically and heavy rain? And so there's three things to review and things we look at to determine, okay, this is what might lead to a flood risk for today and for tomorrow. I hope it's been helpful. Enjoy this Monday. Like I said, some rain showers today and tomorrow. There will be some dry time, though. Again, not everybody's seeing rain. But for some, dry weather. For others, it'll be washout. And there is kind of this randomness to exactly where rain showers will develop initially. Once they develop, we'll have a better sense of where they're going and where to expect continued development for this afternoon and again for Tuesday afternoon. Hope you have a good Monday and a good Tuesday. Hopefully you had a good 4th of July weekend. I know we had some hot weather and some rainy weather too at times. Hopefully you had some time, though, to just celebrate Independence Day, and hope you can look forward to a good Monday. For Ozarks First, I'm meteorologist Tom Schmidt in Springfield, Missouri. Happy Monday.